Everything is postponed. Everything is postponed due to Omicron. Everything is postponed. Well, now we'll know when we'll play. Yes. Hi there. It's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Guess you could say this is my second version of a parody song about the fact that everything has been postponed. Well, the first version, if you will see my shorts channel, was we didn't know when we'll play. Well, now we do. So in this video, let's talk about games that have been said postponed due to Omicron, but now we'll know when we'll play. And this is going to cover all three teams that are playing right now, with the Flames, Hitmen, and Roughnecks. But before I get into the video itself, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey, the home of the said Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my YouTube channel, and I do a variety of non-sports content when I have time to make it. And I do have plans in 2022 on a couple of video series that I plan to do. One, I'm going to say, involves the Calgary Flames, and another will involve some CFL teams. However, it's just thinking about it stage right now, but of course, if you always want to say, if you want to follow along with Calgary sports fans journey, I appreciate the like and subscribe, and if those said video series come to fruition, you'll know if you subscribe. So, there were a bunch of games that were postponed. I mean, the Hitmen had 5 games in total that got postponed. A couple actually have been rescheduled and played as of this video. The Roughnecks, our lacrosse team, has also had a bunch of games postponed. And then the Calgary Flames. Well, I made several videos about all the games that have been postponed, but they have now been rescheduled. So I'll bring out my notes and the websites, and let's talk about games that have been rescheduled, as now we'll know when we'll play. So starting off with the Calgary Hitmen, because we'll talk about them first. The only game that is still postponed was the game that was originally scheduled on Saturday, January 1st, where the Calgary Hitmen were scheduled to take on the Lethbridge Hurricanes at home. Ultimately, first it was the Lethbridge Hurricanes that had, team activity suspended due to said viral illness. I mean, tired of talking about this BS, but you know what I mean, hence the song at the beginning. But also the fact that last week, it was up till the end of last week that the Calgary Hitmen actually were finally allowed to resume team activities. At one point, 15 of the 22 teams in the Western Hockey League were shut down due to this reason. But the other games that got rescheduled, the Calgary Hitmen had a couple games that they were scheduled to take on Regina and Moose Jaw. Those couple games, I did say in the last video for the Calgary Hitmen that those games got rescheduled a week later. So those games got played, and we'll talk more about those games in depth in the next episode of my Calgary Hitmen in 6. So that's 3 out of 5 games. And then the couple games that got postponed and rescheduled were a couple games that the Calgary Hitmen were playing in Manitoba, where they were originally scheduled to play Brandon and Winnipeg on the road the first weekend of January. Well, those games got rescheduled to the middle of the month, as the game that the Calgary Hitmen will be hosting or going to Winnipeg, which I believe originally was scheduled for Saturday, January 8th, is now going to be played on Tuesday, March the 15th in Winnipeg. And then the game when they are going to be playing in Brandon will be on Wednesday, March 16th. Originally was scheduled for Friday, January 7th. So those were the couple other games that have been postponed. Those games got postponed because of the attendance restrictions in Manitoba, but not too sure if that's going to change by the time that rolls around. But that is the 5 games, or 4 of them have been postponed, but one still hasn't been figured out as of yet. And it's a closer game because this is a home game within Alberta. The 2 games got pushed back a week with the Saskatchewan games. Those games that got rescheduled for Calgary being on the road in Manitoba, they're going to have an extra long road trip, because I looked at the schedules that They already had a couple games they were scheduled to play in Brandon and Winnipeg. Then they're going to go to Saskatchewan to play a couple more games in Saskatchewan. Then go back in Manitoba to make up those couple games. So at least it looks like in junior hockey they are committed to get 68 games, or at least close to 68 games in for the regular season. However, once they get to touch on the Roughnecks and the Flames, actually the Calgary Hitmen got pushed out to their second home, their home away from home, at the Seven Chiefs Sportsplex, because the Hitmen have had already games scheduled in February. So is the Roughnecks, and when I get to the Flames, just like in Breakfast Club when Vernon was threatening Bender that, good, your schedule's going to be filled, when he keeps saying that to another. Well, in February, those 3 weeks that the Olympic break was originally scheduled, well, that gap is now filled with the Calgary Flames playing catch-up, and a lot of those games are at the Scotiabank Saddledome. So getting back to how that affects the Calgary Hitmen, well, they've had 2 home games that are now going to be played at the Seven Chiefs Sportsplex. So this game would be the Wednesday, February the 16th game, as they will be hosting the Moose Jaw Warriors, and the Friday, February 18th game, when they'll be hosting the Winnipeg Ice. Those 2 games will now be played at the Seven Chiefs Sportsplex at Tutina, and that's kind of been the Calgary Hitmen's home away from home, because they played there solely last season with the reduced schedule because of requirements about this viral thing that's flying around the last couple of years that's negatively affecting their lives. They got pushed out for those requirements when the Calgary Flames and the Stockton Heat set up shop in Calgary last year, so the Hitmen got pushed out. So you could say that those 5 games, or 4 of them, have been rescheduled for the Hitmen, and then 2 more games, because of all the other games I'll talk about with the other teams, they pushed the Calgary Hitmen to their home away from home. So that is the updates on the Calgary Hitmen. So mark your calendars, just keep a look on hitmenhockey.com. A couple of those games have already been played, and I'll touch upon that in the next episode of my Calgary Hitmen in 6. So now if we move on to the Calgary Roughnecks, well, as of this recording, if things would have went as scheduled, I would be at the Scotiabank Saddledome right now, getting ready to watch the Calgary Roughnecks take on the Vancouver Warriors. However, that game has been postponed, and actually as a total, 4 games have been postponed for the Calgary North, or Roughnecks I should say. Actually 3 games have been postponed. One has been rescheduled to go around. As of this recording, it's going to be at least 5 weeks that the Calgary Roughnecks will go between games, because the last time the Calgary Roughnecks played a game was on Friday, December 17th, which was the home opener, that the Calgary Roughnecks took on the San Diego Seals, and at that point was only their 3rd game of the regular season, and which means with a couple of games being postponed in January, my next episode of my Calgary Roughnecks this month is going to be a very, very light schedule recap, because they only have 1 game scheduled to play, which will be on Saturday, January the 29th, where they'll be in San Diego, taking on the San Diego Seals. So that'll be a 5-week gap. But the games that have been rescheduled for the Calgary Hitmen, or not Hitmen, Roughnecks, now I'm talking lacrosse. Well, the first game that got postponed originally was scheduled on Thursday, December 30th, where the Roughnecks were scheduled to take on the Halifax Thunderbirds. It would have been the East Coast Kitchen Party. Well, now that game has been rescheduled to Friday, April the 8th. So I guess I'll have to wait till April 8th for me to kiss the cot. So that is the first game that got postponed, has now been rescheduled. And then earlier this month, the Calgary Roughnecks were scheduled to take on the Rochester Nighthawks. And this is on the road. That game originally was scheduled on Saturday, January 8th. They have moved that game till Friday, April the 22nd. So the Calgary Roughnecks will have a very, very busy March and April, even more, with all these games being moved, because they have 4 games scheduled in February. And then the other games that have been moved or postponed, well, the game that I touched upon that if things would have went as scheduled, I'd be at the Saddledome right now. The game originally scheduled for Saturday, January 2nd, where they would take on the Vancouver Warriors. Well, they moved that game till Friday, February the 18th, which is the Friday before Family Day weekend. And then the one game that got rescheduled, which basically will be playing a night earlier, originally was scheduled on Saturday, February 12th. Well, they're going to move that game to Friday, February 11th, where the Calgary Roughnecks will be at home, taking on the Colorado Mammoth. So there's 4 games that have been rescheduled for the Calgary Roughnecks now. I'll put all the links in the description below. They did mention a game on February 18th and April 8th. They still haven't decided the ball drop, but there's a good chance it'll be 7 or 7:30 once they figure out the broadcast schedule with the Sports Center TSN, as the TSN and the ESPN has broadcasted the game of the week. So at least the National Lacrosse League has been on TV a lot more on national networks, but definitely it's been a very, very slow start for my Calgary Roughnecks, mostly because of scheduling and things being postponed. So that is the story with the Calgary Roughnecks. So the next episode of my Calgary Roughnecks this month, where I recap January, most of it's going to be talking about games that didn't happen and been rescheduled, and that one game against San Diego Seals. Assuming it happens, I'm pretty confident it will, because the game's on the road in the United States. So now let's talk about the main team, the Calgary Flames. Suddenly, just like Mr. Vernon on Bender in the Breakfast Club, that schedule has now been filled in February. And I'm going to say this will also really, I keep saying when the virus hit the Flames and the outbreak happened, that's really going to make or break the Flames season. When you look ahead at the schedule in February now, and then in March already, there's a lot more red than white on the schedule in terms of there'll be a lot more home games. And so far, if you've been following the Calgary Flames, they've been so-so at home this year. Or if they can figure things out at home, I think this team has a very, very favorable schedule as long as they stay healthy, and we should still convince Andrew Mangiapane. What I'm getting at is that as many goals as Andrew Mangiapane has scored for the Calgary Flames, he has scored all but one on the road. So we need to tell him we're on the road, we're at home. See if that works. Because I don't think they allow him to wear a white jersey when we're playing at home. This is not soccer when he's a goalie. So the games that all have been rescheduled for 10 games, a lot of them is going to be played catch-up in February. Others have been closer around. It's still going to have it worked out that the regular season for the NHL is still planning on ending April 30th, so they didn't add another week to the schedule, because April 29th is still the last game for the Calgary Flames. But let's get your calendars ready. Is the Calgary Flames game? Let's list this one first in the story. Well, I guess it'd be the first rescheduled game. Originally, the Calgary Flames were scheduled to host the Vegas Golden Knights on January the 15th. Now that game has been rescheduled to February the 9th. That will be a 7:30 puck drop. This is now in that 3-week gap where the Olympic break would have been if the players decided to go over to the Olympics, but I think it's wise that they didn't because of all things considered. Then the next game that's got rescheduled would be the Calgary Flames. They would be hosting the Toronto Maple Leafs. Originally that game was scheduled on December 16th during the peak of the outbreak that happened with the Calgary Flames. That game will happen on the next night on February the 10th. Now, the Calgary Flames have a couple of road games that have been rescheduled. As the Calgary Flames, they were scheduled to take on the New York Islanders on the road. They postponed the New York Islanders Western Canadian swing due to capacity reasons. That game originally was scheduled on January 11th. That will now be played on February the 12th in New York. And the game starts at... never mind, this game will be at home because I was looking at the time. But so the Flames have 3 straight games at home so far. So Let's backtrack here. Originally, the Calgary Flames were scheduled to host the New York Islanders, as that game will be originally scheduled on January 11th, will be played on February 12th. Yeah, the New York Islanders were on that Western Canadian road trip that they postponed, and so now that game will be on February 12th. The game on February 10th will be at 7. This one starts at 8 on February 12th. Then the next game, so Calgary's going to have a bunch of home games in a row here in February. So on February 15th, the Calgary Flames will be hosting the Columbus Blue Jackets. Originally, the Calgary Flames were scheduled to take them on the December 18th, so that game will be February 15th at 7 p.m. And then the next game that has been rescheduled, the Calgary Flames will be hosting the Anaheim Ducks. Originally, they scheduled that game on December 21st. That game will be on February 16th. That'll be a 7:30 puck drop. And then another game, well, now we know when Mark Giordano and the Seattle Kraken comes back to Calgary, as the Flames will be hosting the Seattle Kraken. Originally, that game was scheduled on December 23rd. Now has been scheduled to February the 19th. That would be an 8 p.m. puck drop. And then the game originally scheduled on New Year's Eve, where the Calgary Flames were supposed to host the Winnipeg Jets on December 31st, has now been rescheduled to February 21st, and that'll be a 2 p.m. puck drop. I think, yeah, that's Family Day. So looking at this, the Calgary Flames have 7 straight home games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or 7 straight home games, because there's another game that's rescheduled at home, but it's not all together. So hopefully the Flames can figure out their home record, play better at home, and make some hay, build it up in the standings. So the couple more games that have been rescheduled. Well, the Calgary Flames originally were scheduled to take on the Edmonton Oilers on December 27th. They have moved that game to March the 7th. That'll be a 7:30 puck drop. Then the final 2 games that the Calgary Flames still have to get rescheduled, and then these were the first 2 games that were on that road trip that started the outbreak. The Calgary Flames on the road against the Chicago Blackhawks originally was scheduled on December 13th. They moved that game till April 18th. That'd be a 6:30 puck drop. And then the final game, the second game, the Calgary Flames were scheduled to play the Nashville Predators. That game was on December 14th originally. They moved that the next night on April 19th to 6 p.m. puck drop. So, wow, quite a task for the schedule makers. I mean, I'll put the links in the description below for all the affected teams, but at least we'll know when we'll play. As I figured the whole time that the players weren't going to go to the Olympics, and I think those 3 weeks in February, that time is going to be spent for playing catch-up, and that's exactly what it is. But if you look at the schedule, if the Flames can ever figure out and play better at home, I think they should have a fairly favorable schedule the next couple months. And the coach is right when Darryl said February and March is definitely going to break, are we going to make the playoffs or not, just from all the home games. And now that, they had some time off to work on some things, but now they're going to be playing catch-up. But it is what it is, but that's basically all it is about all the games being rescheduled for the Calgary Hitmen, Calgary Roughnecks, and the Calgary Flames. At least now we'll know when we'll play. So anyway, as I like to say, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, home to Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, and mostly Utah Calgary sports. On my YouTube channel, where we recap games and stories and that. Well, I also do a variety of non-sports content like personal vlogs, attempt to comedy, and also do share experience I'm on the road or a sporting event, and I've done some vlogging to go. Of course, that's when I've had time, which doesn't seem to be much of these days. And then, of course, the other thing that has been postponed is the start of Chinook Blast, as when the city announced that it was going to be a 6-week event in February or in the winter time. And then last year they only got 3 weekends in. Well, this year they're only got 4 weekends in, so Chinook Blast has also been postponed until the first weekend in February. And then it's planned that every weekend in February there'll be a Chinook Blast, so I do plan to take in some content in there as well to make videos like I did last year with Chinook Blast. So that's the last part. And then, of course, I have my second channel in Brett Hornby Shorts, where on that channel I exclusively put my short form content on that channel, the YouTube Shorts. So I appreciate like, subscribe both here on my main channel as well as my second channel. So if that all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, you know what you do, just make sure you hit like, subscribe. I also have my other social links down in the description below. As I did mention at the beginning that I do have potentially a couple video series planned that I want to do in this year, which, of course, if it actually comes to fruition, you'll know if you are subscribed to my channel. So I just want to say thanks for watching, and update your calendars. And yep, just like I mentioned, the Breakfast Club, Bender's calendar is now filled from all those attentions, just like in February, because things didn't get played in December when they did, and then the residual effects for the other teams. But it'd just definitely be nice to finally get back in the games. And you have to think eventually this BS with what's been going on is eventually going to end. Don't know. But it's definitely been a lot tougher to live through this as well. And actually it's been the reason why I haven't been able to make as many videos, because, you know, you're always working away, and then when you're not working, you're just poof, done. So just still be thankful I am able to make some videos. It just hasn't been as much, you know, due to time and everything else. So I just want to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.